All right, so today we're going to be talking about multiplying radical expressions. And so in question 1, we've got the square root of 10 times the quantity, the square root of 6 plus 3. And so naturally, when we have something written like this, we're going to distribute the quantity outside to everything inside the parentheses. The trick for multiplying radicals is that you multiply the items outside of the radicals together, and then you multiply the items inside the radicals together. So in this case, we've got the square root of 10 as we distribute it times the square root of 6. And then the other quantity would be the square root of 10 times 3. Well, for the square root of 10 times the square root of 6, we're going to get the square root of 60. For square root of 10 times 3, we just get 3 square root of 10. Now the last step of the problem would be to try to reduce anything we can. Well, we can simplify the square root of 60 because I know it's made up of the square root of 4 and the square root of 15. All right, and so the square root of 4 is 2, so right now I've got 2 square root of 15 plus 3 square root of 10. And that is all I can do for this problem, and that's my answer. Question 2 is very similar. So we distribute the square root of 2 throughout. So you've got the square root of 2 times the square root of 6 plus the square root of 2 times 5. We multiply what's underneath the radical together, so that gives us the square root of 12. Here we're going to tack the 5 on the front of the square root of 2. I know that I can simplify the square root of 12 into the square root of 4 and the square root of 3. The square root of 4 is 2, so I've got 2 square root of 3 plus 5 square root of 2. And this is my answer. Question 3, now we've got the quantity square root of 11 minus 2 squared. Remember, when a problem is written like this, we go ahead and break it apart so that way we can use FOIL. So we're going to end up foiling this, just like we would in previous chapters. So for FOIL, we take the first item times the first item. So that's square root of 11 times square root of 11, which gives us the square root of 121. Then we've got the square root of 11 times negative 2. So the negative 2 is not under the radical, so we get negative 2 square root of 11. Inside, we've got negative 2 times the square root of 11. So that's negative 2 square root of 11. And then last but not least, negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. Now we're going to try to simplify anything we can. Well, in this case, I know the square root of 121 is just 11. I also know that these have like radicals, so I can add their coefficients or combine their coefficients. So negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. So negative 4 square root of 11. And then I have the plus 4 here. The last thing to do here would be to go ahead and take care of our constants. So I'm going to add 11 and 4, so that way I get my final answer, which is 15 minus the square root, or minus 4 times the square root of 11. Question 4, we're back to distributing, so we're going to distribute square root of 6 to the 4 square root of 3 and to the 3 as well. So I've got square root of 6 times 4 square root of 3 plus square root of 6 times 3. Well, remember, we only multiply the things under the radicals together, so right now I've got 4 square root of, 6 times 3 is 18 plus 3 square root of 6. I can simplify the square root of 18 because I know it's made up of the square root of 9 and the square root of 2. And then I have the 4 out in front. The square root of 9 is 3. So I've got 4 times 3 times the square root of 2. Well, that becomes 12 square root of 2. And I'll just bring down the 3 square root of 6. So my final answer is 12 square root of 2 plus 3 square root of 6. Question 5, we're back to a FOIL type problem. So remember, we're going to take the square root of 5 times the square root of 5, or in this case first. So 5 times 5 is going to give us the square root of 25. Then we'll go to the outside. So that's 1 times the square root of 5. So that's just the square root of 5 essentially. And then inside, negative 1 times square root of 5, which would be negative square root of 5. And then last, negative 1 times positive 1 is negative 1. Now we just need to simplify. The square root of 25 is 5. We have like radicals here, so a positive 1 and a negative 1 just cancel out. So that just becomes 0, and then minus 1 at the end. The last thing we need to do is go ahead and add up all our constants, and so our final answer for question 5 is just 4. All right, we'll do the same thing in 6. We're going to use FOIL. So we've got 6 times the square root of 6 times the square root of 6, which gives us the square root of 36. Then we've got the square root of 6 times 3, so that's 3 square root of 6. Inside we've got negative 2 square root of 3 times the square root of 6, so that's going to be negative 2 square root of 18. And then negative 2 square root of 3 times 3 gives us negative 6 square root of 3. So now we're going to try to simplify anything we can. Well, the square root of 6 in this, or 36 in this case, is 6. We can't reduce the 3 square root of 6, so it stays the way it is. I know that the square root of 18 can be broken apart into the square root of 9 and 2. So we've got the square root of 9, square root of 2. Square root of 9 is 3, so that's negative 2 times 3, which gives us negative 6 square root of 2 here. And then the negative 6 square root of 3. In this case, none of our radicals have the same number under them, so we can't do anything else with this problem. This is as simplified as it comes, and it's really not that simple because there's 4 terms, but it works out. All right, question 7, same idea. We want to break this apart first. So square root of 3 minus the square root of 2 times the square root of 3 minus the square root of 2. All right, we want to FOIL, so we're going to take first. So that's square root of 3 times square root of 3, which is square root of 9. Outside, square root of 3 times square root of 2, or negative square root of 2. We have negative square root of 6. Negative square root of 2 times the square root of 3. Well, that's negative square root of 6 again. And then negative square root of 2 times the negative square root of 2 gives us a positive square root of 4. And so now we just want to simplify anything we can. Square root of 9 is 3. We have like radicals here, so that's negative 2 square root of 6. And then square root of 4 is 2. Last thing we need to do is simplify our constants. So 3 plus 2 would be 5. So we got 5 minus 2 square root of 6. Question 8, same idea. We're going to FOIL. So first, square root of 6 times 4 square root of 3. Well, that's 4 square root of 18. And then square root of 6 times 3 square root of 6. Well, that's 3 square root of 36. And then negative 2 square root of 3 times 4 square root of 3. Well, that's going to be negative 8 square root of 9. And then negative 2 square root of 3 times 3 square root of 6 is negative 6 square root of 18. So now we'll try to simplify. Well, I know that the 18 here is 9 and 2. And so I've got 4 times the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. Square root of 9 is 3, so 4 times 3 would be 12. So 12 square root of 2 for the first one. I know that the square root of 36 is 6, so 6 times 3 gives us 18. That's 18. I know the square root of 9 is 3, so negative 8 times 3 would be negative 24. And then I know that the 18 is broken apart into 9 and 2. So that means we've got negative 6 times the square root of 9, which is 3, so negative 6 times 3, that's negative 18, square root of 2. So the last thing we need to do is combined like radicals, and then add together or combined our constants. So 12 minus 18 gives us negative 6 square root of 2, and then 18 minus 24 gives us negative 6. So our answer here is negative 6 square root of 2 minus 6. On the last 3 problems, I want you to go ahead and pause the video and try them on your own, and then unpause it to check your answers. So pause it when you're ready. When you're ready to see the answers, unpause it and go from there. So if you did everything right for question 1, you should have 41 minus 12 square root of 5. For question 2, you should get square root of 21 minus 2 square root of 3. And for question 3, you'll get 14 plus 2 square root of 33.